News updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yesterday, most of the NFL teams had a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. Not in Cincinnati, I understand. The Bengals may want to change that. Perhaps Joe Burrow should lead the way. There's been a person removed from the Joe Burrow Foundation board. Joe Burrow, of course, the quarterback for the Bengals, if you're not a football fan. The board member removed from the Joe Burrow Foundation is a local judge, Cincinnati municipal court judge, named Ted Berry, who posted on social media in response to Charlie Kirk's death, "Rest in hatred and division, !" clown face. This is a judge. Not that I think this is beneath the many Cook County judges. Should be scrubbing their social media as we speak. He went on to say he spewed hate and division. How does he feel about gun violence and gun control in hell now? Municipal court judge. You think Lady Justice is blind in Ted Berry's court? As you might expect, there are calls for his resignation from the bench. Mm-hmm. The flip side of that is this very interesting piece by Will Ron in over at the Free Press. He invokes RFK's speech in Indianapolis on the occasion of Martin Luther King's assassination. And you remember RFK and King were not close. RFK authorized the illegal wiretaps on MLK. Not close. In Indianapolis, and he was warned not to go because of the violence that erupted. He said this, did Kennedy, as recounted in this piece over at the Free Press. For those of you who are black and tempted to be filled with hatred and distrust at the injustice of such an act against all white people, I can only say that I feel in my own heart the same kind of feeling. I had a member of my family killed, but he was killed by a white man. But we have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand, to go beyond these rather difficult times. What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence or lawlessness, but love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, and a feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or they be black. I shall ask you tonight to return home to say a prayer for the family of Martin Luther King, but more importantly, to say a prayer for our own country, which all of us love, a prayer for understanding and that compassion of which I spoke, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. Let's dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and for our people. Interesting that there was not violence in Indianapolis. The city stayed pretty calm after RFK's words as compared to the violence in dozens and dozens of other cities that left dozens of people dead and thousands injured. Ron's point, or his commentary on RFK, that message, the point of his posting that excerpt from his remarks. You don't have to have loved Kirk or his politics to mourn his passing. Any political assassination is an attack on all of us, our democracy, our God-given right to choose between competing ideas. Kennedy understood that deeply and personally. He loved this country despite what it had taken from him. And he knew the long-suffering crowd of poor black Americans gathered to see him love this country too, regardless of the fact they had so little in common with them, that he had so little in common with them in their experiences. After Kirk's assassination, the central challenge facing the American people is the one Bobby put to us: to see past our differences, to love each other, to embrace our country and dedicate ourselves to improving it. Most importantly, we must reject violence, no matter what bitterness resides within our hearts, just as Kennedy did, just as his audience did. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And so far, we've had cooler heads prevailing, as we've seen from the vigils, including in Arlington Heights yesterday here, and the commentary from college kids mourning Charlie Kirk's passing. It's been encouraging, generally speaking. The comments online from some of these people, municipal court judges and teachers and professors, and a little less redeeming, I'd say. Julianna Frieman is a freelance writer who covers media and politics. She's been writing about this and other matters, many of her pieces over at The Spectator, spectator.org. Julianna, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So you're a Gen Zer.
Yes.
You know, give us your perspective on this. You wrote a piece calling the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as many people have said, a turning point. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a breach in the rules of civil society. And what happened was a politically motivated shooter aimed for Charlie Kirk's throat, which was symbolic because it was a direct attack on the right to speak freely in America, which we have seen for years now, ever since the rise of Donald Trump, which has occurred where, during the Biden administration, we saw this rampant social media censorship, cracking down on the truth about January 6th, the 2020 election, COVID protection measures, which actually weren't as effective as the experts told us. And essentially what's going on right now is, I think a lot of people in my generation, whether they're left or right, are recognizing the fact that violence and murder is not how we solve disputes in this country. The right to speak freely, the right to free expression does not include violence. It does not include destruction. And I think one of the main questions we're facing is whether it includes self-destruction. So Gen Z is one of the most self-harming generations in modern history. And the rates and awareness regarding self-injury, drug use, suicide, and gender experimentation are off the charts. They're surging. And these behaviors are often rebranded as empowerment and self-expression. You should have the freedom to destroy yourself, essentially, is the message that so much media and politicians are sending us. And there's been this two-faced narrative that's been pervasive that Gen Z has been faced with for so long. It's the narrative that you're fundamentally broken, telling young Black Americans that they're at a disadvantage compared to white Americans, or telling LGBT Americans or young girls who are uncomfortable in their bodies when they're going through puberty that they are broken and they can solve that hurt, that pain inside by just changing their physical body, changing their identity. Gen Z latches onto identity when they feel like they can't control anything else. And they do this through transgender identities, fictional characters, internet subcultures. And we've seen with the shooter, he was definitely a participant in some of these deeper, darker internet subcultures. And it immediately made me think of Hillary Clinton's favorite political playbook, Rules for Radicals. Rule 6, a good tactic is one your people enjoy. Now, I think about how social media algorithms spew back at us the content we consume. So it's a cycle. It's a feedback loop. And when this content harms us, and when we're hurting, when we're in pain, and the content is just reaffirming that pain, it builds up and we internalize it. And sometimes it turns to violence. Gen Z does not know how to express themselves, and they're afraid to express themselves. And instead of feeling as though we can change the system ourselves, we have this external locus of control where we feel like we have no power to affect our society. So instead, we turn it inwards and we just feel that pain and internalize it. Or as we saw with the assassin, you direct it at someone who galvanized and empowered Gen Z. The assassin, he only went to one semester at college, and then he ended up going to a trade school and working a blue-collar job. And maybe he felt as though Charlie Kirk represented someone who made something of himself, while this assassin, he was probably built up his whole life. He's so great. He's going to go to a great college. He got a scholarship, but then he was brought down from the pedestal, and who knows what was going through his mind that made him commit such an evil act. But Charlie Kirk was targeted because Charlie Kirk was empowering Gen Z to create a better future.
So what do you think happens on college campuses now? I mean, after Erica Kirk spoke this weekend, they reported, Turning Point USA reported they have 18,000 inquiries for chapters. Right now, they only have 10,000 chapters. So, I mean, that's how fast and furious the response in a positive way was. And so I take some solace from that. What about you?
I do as well. I mean, I think this is a battle between hope and fear. And right now, I think American society is feeling incredibly hopeful that we can effectuate actual change that can prevent these sorts of things from occurring again. I mean, I definitely think that as a nation, we can channel our grief into creating something that can make the next generations better than what we have already witnessed. I feel as though we can take that energy and we can put it in expanding Turning Point USA, spreading better messages for the next generation. And I think that's how we can heal our country.
Well, yeah, and I gotta, I'm sure you noticed the same thing, is like these Turning Point USA, members at various chapters or at universities around the country. I mean, they're behaving with much more impulse control and consideration than many of their professors. It's actually quite stark, and so that also gives much encouragement about what is to come. But I wonder if you think that you're going to see changes on college campuses. I was talking to a friend of mine's daughter's boyfriend, who has who runs the College Republican chapter on campus at Northwestern, where I went, and And by the way, both of his parents are professors, and we can't get conservative speakers on campus. I mean, when I was there, 100 years ago, it was a fight, but we brought conservative speakers to campus. I mean, they're just like we have no chance under the current regime and culture on campus to even bring a conservative speaker to campus. And this is at one of the supposed elite universities in the country, and I just wonder what you think happens, even if there's another 10, 12, 15,000 Turning Point chapters. You still have this situation in the academy.
Yeah, it's quite a terrible situation. I mean, right now, like, what conservative speaker would want to go to a college campus after this happened? I mean, I think about how Luigi Mangione gunned down the United Healthcare CEO, and it seems to have emboldened other horrible acts of murder since then, which I definitely think that this culture is just spiraling out of control right now. But one thing that does give me hope is the fact that all the celebrations online from young leftists, well, I think that I think that if we can overpower those horrible messages celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, if we as a society can change the cultural tides that have enabled these people to feel as though they can commit these acts and maybe be perceived as some sort of folk hero, taking down Charlie Kirk, who they actually truly believed was, someone who wasn't good. These people are indoctrinated from their education, from the media they consume, from everything. So I think that if we follow in Charlie Kirk's footsteps by taking it on at the college campus level and the social media level, I think that if we show them that we are not afraid to have conservative speakers on campus, to freely express ourselves on campus, if we don't give them the permission to silence us, then they can't.
Julianna Frieman is a freelance writer who covers media and politics. Check out her writings at spectator.org, like one I was just referencing. Julianna, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And she joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Unreadable, inconsistent part marking is more than a nuisance. It's a liability. When your part marks fade, your quality and credibility also fade. GT Schmidt helps manufacturers leave a permanent mark on their products.